everyone, for this book review Wednesday, I'm going to be briefly discussing the novel Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, and this is actually her third novel and one of her more, well-known works, although I think usually people associate with her either with Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice or Emma, and I don't think usually for some reason, I think people automatically think Mansfield Park when they think Jane Austen. But I would say it is probably one of the more popular works that she's produced. But regardless as to how popular it is or how well known it is, let me kind of give you a brief summary as to what the story is about. It is about this at first young girl named Fanny Price, who ultimately has to move out of her household because there are just too many kids and not enough resources for the family to take care of all of the children. Apparently, I think, including herself, it's 9 siblings. And so they decide to give her to an aunt and uncle who are more well off, and they live within Mansfield Park, which is a parenage. I can't exactly distinguish exactly the term, but I guess it's just a more upscale, sort of luxurious area. Kind of like how we have certain places within the United States that are more designed for wealthy people. I guess Mansfield Park is designed for being more upscale. So she ends up moving within this area and lives with her aunt and uncle and her 4 cousins. And these 3 cousins out of the 4 are very vain, and they are very selfish, and they don't treat her with a certain amount of respect or dignity. It might be too because she's of a lower class, maybe, since she has to kind of live with them because of the incapacity of the family to ultimately support her. So she ultimately ends up living with them, but doesn't have a strong relationship with any of the 3 cousins, except one cousin who is named Edmund, who treats her with a lot of respect and dignity and kind of helps her out in sort of adjusting to her circumstances, and this sort of ends up resulting in Fanny ultimately developing romantic feelings for Edmund. So yes, she develops feelings for her cousin. 21st century people would probably say red flag, but since this is the, I guess you could say, early 1800s, I guess I'm not going to complain about cousins getting married. It wasn't, I guess, seen as something that was looked down upon. It was just something that I guess would happen within certain circumstances. However, I think this did bother me, this kind of cultural, kind of historical difference that we have when it comes to, developing romantic feelings for somebody. And again, it's kind of emphasized too in the book how Edmund and Fanny sort of developed this sister-brother kind of relationship, and then that suddenly turns on its head to being romantic, and it's kind of odd to me. I mean, they do develop the relationship well, but I think the circumstances make it very odd, like just the idea of the fact that they are actually like related by blood just kind of freaks me out. But I guess back then it was acceptable and people didn't really mind if cousins got married. But I don't think today we would be looking at this as a proper choice for for people to make in regards to, again, family and what we know now about, like, as far as medical science, that the more closer you are to somebody by blood, it's difficult to have children that will have a healthy and fulfilling life. And there's tons of research to emphasize that point. But again, I think the whole fact that they were cousins sort of just bothered me, and the idea of them setting themselves up as a brother and sister relationship, but then ultimately turning it into a romantic relationship, I think is what bothered me the most about this book. So yes, she ends up falling for her cousin. And her cousin ultimately, as you'll see, ends up falling for somebody else, who is not related to him by blood. And this kind of bothers her because not only does she like her cousin, but she doesn't think that this woman is a good match for him, and is not, I guess, a proper lady, I guess you could say. It is really emphasized within this book, and I think with older novels, that really character is what defines sort of your standing in the way of social circles. So if you did something to really mess things up, you were like completely out of that circle, and you were shamed and looked down upon as something bad. And so Fanny kind of is sort of the central moral compass of this whole area of Mansfield Park and the people that inhabit it. So basically, he ends up falling for another Edmund. While Edmund ends up falling for another woman, the brother of this woman ends up falling in love with Fanny. And Fanny doesn't particularly care for him at all, and doesn't like the way he acts in public, and she thinks that he's kind of a flirt. I don't know if this classifies, if you would classify this guy into the category of 18th century player, but apparently that's kind of how she sees him. As very vain and self-centered and uncaring. So yeah, she kind of just ultimately rejects him, and then there's a lot of whole drama that ensues after these sort of events. But that's basically the gist of sort of the premise of the story. Now, I don't feel like this book in particular really focuses on a certain aspect of morality. Like, for example, Sense and Sensibility. You have, the senses where you think through your emotions, and then you have sensibility or sense where you think through logic and reason, and sensibility where you think through emotions. And basically, Jane Austen's piece on that was that, you can't, and theme in regards to these two things is that, you need both your emotional side as well as your rational side to ultimately make decisions within life. And the same sort of with Pride and Prejudice. There is a certain amount of pride that someone can have, and then sometimes that ends up resulting in prejudice, and you kind of see how these two things ultimately end up sort of tying together, sort of similar to Sense and Sensibility. But here, it's just titled Mansfield Park, and so the whole premise is really centered around this area, this place called Mansfield Park. I guess they classified Mansfield Park as a grand house. So whatever that means. So I'm not really aware of how 1800 style or late 1700 style grand houses look, but I bet you they were pretty swanky. But yeah, that's really the gist of the story. I think just the aspect of not only them, it's not just the fact that they're just cousins. It also has to do with the fact that they have, it's confusing their relationship, because they sort of emphasize the point that it's supposed to be kind of like a sister brother like relationship, because Edmund's sort of kind of trying to get her to feel comfortable within the house, and tries to be this sort of supportive brother-like figure to her. And then ultimately how it changes itself on its head into romantic, I just find very odd. And also I think that making everybody else within sort of the outside world, again, not just the Price family, but the people that come in contact with the Price family as like evil, manipulative, not worthy of friendship people, that it kind of creates this thing of oh, everybody else in the outside world must be, that they must come in contact with, is like this. It seems like the majority, at least within this book, are really bad people. Like it seems like Fanny seems to have the high moral groundwork, and I guess Edmund too, you could say. But ultimately, everybody else is just completely flawed. And I think this creates a problem, at least for me, within reading this story, because I think I don't mind Jane Austen emphasizing morals, and again trying to reinforce the idea of character within people. I think that's really a good thing that she brings out in her books. But I think this whole like treating Fanny as like, the superior one, and not giving her sort of any real flaws, and putting her on this high pedestal as, yeah, she's going to be the ultimate one that is going to, keep this whole place together, because she's the only one who's capable of doing that, and her not really changing, her really learning anything necessarily, like having everybody else learn something, maybe more or less, but then having her sort of be like the moral guide, I think doesn't really serve for a lot of character growth and for development with her. And I think that was another issue that I had with this book. And oh, the cousin thing still bothers me. I'm sorry. It just bothers me. But I think in regards to whether or not I would recommend it, I would recommend it. I think it's interesting in how it addresses certain things, and it's interesting to read these kinds of older novels that have a different, and I almost want to say hugely different kind of understanding of morals than what we would today. I think that's something that I think really intrigued me about the book. But as regards to the characters, and you just have the bad people, and then you have the two good, or maybe three good people within the story, who are Fanny, Edmund, and I think a little bit of Fanny's brother William. But beyond that, there's really nothing else that's really established that makes everybody else creditable in a certain respect. So it's really, I guess that's really what bothers me, is this whole idea of that, yeah, all these people are bad. There's this whole kind of black and white thing that kind of Jane Austen puts within her stories, and the whole drama episodes that happen. I think they kind of bother me. It's just too, I think, I just think it's too, it's just too oversimplified. Like, I've seen this before. Like, it's, yeah, there's going to be these rude people, that you come across in life, and yeah, you can call them out on whatever they're doing, and say, yeah, hey, what you're doing is wrong. But I think when she emphasizes this point throughout various novels that she's done, and it's not really trying to build upon trying to create anything a little bit more complex than that, I think that's what really ultimately bothers me. Kind of similar to why I was bothered by Pride and Prejudice in certain respects. How I think it's just too simplistic, and results in having these things that are thrown out there that I don't think really give depth to people's characters or characteristics or personalities. So again, since Fanny is supposed to be the holy Jesus of this book, it kind of bothered me, because I think we owe, at least I think Jane Austen owes her readers to have been at least a little bit more in depth with characters, instead of just painting them as one way or as another way. It's I think that's just kind of what bothered me. Instead of trying to be more in depth, you just have a whole morality story that we've seen time and time again. Oh, okay, judge somebody by their character. Yeah, no, duh. I mean, yeah, sure, we should judge someone by their inability to have character. Yeah, okay. I mean, everything that she displays is sort of common sense. So, again, I think just that aspect of her reinforcing these things that she's already reinforced, I think just bothers me. And I think it falls into that same category of Pride and Prejudice, where it bothered me. Like having someone really judge you and not really know anything about you and your history or anything of that nature. And, I think that's really the thing that bothered me there. And then with this book, it has to deal with the fact that, there's just this really high-end moral structure of, oh yeah, what's right is right. It's, it's the way Fanny sees it is really what's the moral way, and, not having her to go through any growth or any kind of development, really. And her just being, the crutch of, again, somebody else, of Edmund, who treats her with respect and dignity. It would have been a lot more interesting, I think, had they given all of her cousins horrible personalities and have her go through a Cinderella-like story where she kind of grows and develops and tries to overcome the various circumstances that she's in. But in this book, she has a crutch and someone to lean on, and that's Edmund. And I think that's really the thing that bothered me, because, that doesn't allow for the character to grow, that doesn't allow for the character to learn, and you just put everybody in their box and then ultimately create some drama scenario around it, and then hope for us to buy it and go, yeah, okay, all right, I'm on Fanny's side now, so she's got the moral high ground here. So yeah, I think that's really what ultimately bothered me in regards to this book. But would I still recommend it? Absolutely. I think there's just certain things that go beyond just the characters that are interesting, like the whole kind of set up and the various things that happen within the book, you kind of see what the sort of lifestyle back then was like, and how they talked, and how they developed conversation and interactions with one another. So, I mean, it is a lot different than, I'd say, our time period. Just be prepared to be reinforced by the various Jane Austen reinforcements that we've seen time and time again that are so annoying. So I think, though, that's ultimately all that I can really say. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. But I think that's really all I can add. Thank you so much for watching, and this is not against anybody who likes the book. I still came away with enjoying the book, but I would say there were these things that did bother me throughout it. And so far, I'd say Sense and Sensibility is the one that I like the most out of all of her works. So, again, that's all I think I can add, but thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.